G'day. Well, g'day, Cement Shoes. Good to have you here. It is the antifreeze guy, yes. Let me know if there's too much noise coming from that little air conditioning unit. It's so hot here. I've had 2 swims today, and I'm going to be having one after this live. I'm also getting hungry. So I don't know how long I'm going to be live for because I'm hankering a tuna and avocado salad anytime now. But lovely Shanna in a fabulous community suggested I do a reaction to this, and I haven't looked at it because I want my reaction to be spontaneous. A little bit of backstory. You know what's coming. I've been warned there are peen jokes. Got to make sure I don't swear in the first 30 seconds or whatever it is. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Bit of reacting. I know there's like 4 parts to the prosecution's opening statement. Pardon me. So I'm using Fox 6 News. So I don't know if we'll get through all of them today, but we'll have a crack. Hey, Green Eyes, but we'll have a bit of a laugh. But yeah, it's really hot, and I'm trying this little unit, which is fantastic in my bedroom. It's really good in small rooms, but this is a massive room for it to try and cool down. And I must admit, though, the temperature has dropped 0.5 degree since I put it on about half an hour ago. Someone said you need them to be on for like at least an hour before you feel the effects. I've got it pointed at me and I'm not feeling the effects. It's getting hot in here. So I might need mega pint breaks every now and then just to top up my water. Cheers, everybody. Grab a mega pint. Apparently this is going to be sensational viewing. The backstory is really interesting in this, though. So Mark Jensen is accused of murdering his wife, Julie, on December the 3rd, 1998 in Wisconsin. During the trial, the original trial, a letter written by the deceased prior to her death was tendered as evidence, and it expressed her husband's intentions, and she gave the letter to a neighbour and told the neighbour to give it to the police if anything happened to her. She said in the letter she'd never commit suicide, and if she died, police need to consider her husband a suspect. The letter said, I pray that I'm wrong and nothing happens, but I'm suspicious of Mark's suspicious behaviours and fear for my early demise. So back in 2008, he was convicted of first-degree intentional homicide, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment without any chance of parole. You're guilty. But then the verdict was overturned, and it all goes back to this evidence, the letter. Getting down to the appellate proceedings. So 2008, he was found guilty, off to jail you go, life imprisonment, you're never getting out. Then in December 2013, Jensen's conviction was overturned and he was released from prison within 90 days. They agreed that the state's use of the dead wife's letter violated his constitutional right to confront witnesses testifying against him, and it's fairly logical why she wasn't able to. She's no longer alive. And so they overturned his conviction, and then the state of Wisconsin appealed that decision. But in 2015, the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit upheld that decision. Then in 2016, prosecutors decided to retry him for the murder of Julie Jensen. And in 2017, Kenosha Circuit Judge Chad Kirkman reinstated his conviction. Then in 2020, Wisconsin's Court of Appeals, District 2, issued a summary disposition reversing that decision to reinstate the conviction. And then it was remanded to the Circuit Court for further proceedings, including trial. And the trial is now kicked off. It kicked off, I think, on the 9th or around the 9th of January. And the evidence regarding that letter from Julie Jensen is not allowed to be tendered. Neither is a voicemail either. So he's being tried again. What a saga. Justice for Julie Jensen, you know, since 2008. That's a very long wait for justice. So what we're going to be doing today is reacting to the prosecution's opening statement. Now, the first clip goes for 25 minutes, but apparently about 20 minutes into this clip, there was an objection by the defense team. So what I'm planning on doing is just playing the start of it, because usually the start of a prosecution case introduces the victim to the jury, and victims matter here, so we need to get up to speed on Julie's story. But then if it just sort of starts to go into evidence that the jury is going to get to see, we might jump forward to that 20-minute mark and see what happened with an objection during an opening statement. That in itself is interesting. And be warned, there could be some very poor taste jokes regarding the male appendage. That's the only thing I know about it. And the fact that Shanna thinks he looks a little bit like Kevin Bacon, because she said, I've never seen Jensen and Kevin Bacon in the same room. That's really all I know about it. And then that little history I just read out. So we're going to add this to the stream and kick off reacting to the opening statement of the prosecutor in Mark Jensen's murder trial, accused of murdering his wife, Julie. And there he is in the background. And yeah, I see a bit of Kevin Bacon going on there for sure. All right. Let's go.
This is Julie Jensen. She's with her two sons, David, the older boy, and Douglas, the little boy. As you are aware by now, in this case, Mark Jensen, the defendant, stands accused of murdering his wife, Julie Jensen, in 1998.
Oh, did you watch it on Jen Lou? So she's already done a reaction. She would have been hilarious too. I don't know if I should be doing it now, because everyone, you guys are all sub to Jen. You've probably already seen this. Might explain why I have a small but enthusiastic crowd of 4 people present. I don't want to like double up on stuff. If Jen's already done an exceptional job reacting, then, and now I've got a smaller enthusiastic crowd of but 2 of us. What do you reckon? Do I pull a pin on this and get some lunch and go to the beach and tell Shanna to watch Jen Lou's version of it? I simply must do the reaction. And you haven't seen it, Greenhouse. All right, reason enough to soldier on. Here we go.
By poisoning her with ethylene glycol, the main ingredient in antifreeze.
That would have been horrible.
Now, when you have a murder case such as this, you hear evidence in great detail about the person who is killed.
Where'd the prosecutor go?
So you're going to hear evidence about how Julie's body was discovered dead in her bed at her home. You'll hear detailed evidence about things like how her arm was positioned, the lividity of the blood in her body, how her face looked buried in the pillow.
Oh, look at him. Look at him. He looks Kevin Bacon-ish if Kevin Bacon is playing a psychopathic murderer. I hate to say it, Mark Jensen, but you're not looking... That's not a good look to be given the jury. Hey, Kylie, how are you, guys? I don't know. I see the Kevin Bacon thing, but it's Kevin Bacon playing the role of a suspected murdering psychopath on trial. Don't you reckon? He's got a kind of... Anyway, let's keep going. Apologies to Kevin Bacon, who has played all sorts of roles. But yeah, I do see the resemblance. But I also think when you're in court with a jury looking at you, it's best you don't have your resting bitch face turned on. Just a tip, Mark. All right, here we go.
You're going to hear about Julie's blood and what was in it, her stomach contents and her kidneys, and how they revealed the evidence of the ethylene glycol poisoning. And there's two things that you're going to hear in the evidence that you should know about ethylene glycol poisoning. A person should not have ethylene glycol in their system. The human body is made up of all sorts of things, but ethylene glycol is not one of them. So if ethylene glycol is found in a person, that is instant evidence of poisoning.
Oh, Kylie, just a quick recap. So this is a guy called Mark Jensen who's accused of murdering his wife, Julie, back in 2008. Initially, he was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Then he appealed it on the basis he wasn't able to respond to witness testimony because a letter written by his deceased wife was tendered in evidence along with a voicemail, and he wasn't able to cross-examine her, essentially, because she's dead. So he won that appeal, and then it's been going back and forth in court, and then it was listed for a trial this year without the letter and the voicemail being able to be tendered. They've been deemed to be inadmissible. Hey, Wake the Truck Up America, good to have you here. So we're doing a reaction because Shanna, it was her birthday yesterday. She's a member of our community and said, Tori, you've got to check it out. There's going to be a lot of penis references. I'm curious what they are. And so that's what I'm doing for Shanna as part of her birthday present. I'm reacting to the prosecution's opening statement. I'm just letting it play at the moment just to get the background because victims matter on this channel, and the prosecutor's talking about Julie Jensen, the victim, and I'll probably fast forward it once it gets into you're going to hear evidence from Dr. Smith and all the rest of it, because it says that the defence team objected about 20 minutes into this opening statement, and that in itself is a curious thing. So here we go.
And it has happened that some people have accidentally killed themselves.
Oh, and she died from poisoning of antifreeze poisoning in a nutshell.
With ethylene glycol. And some people have purposefully committed suicide by drinking ethylene glycol. But in this case, the evidence you're going to hear is that the defendant murdered his wife with ethylene glycol, that this was not Julie Jensen ingesting that substance to commit suicide. And that leads me to the other thing you should know about ethylene glycol. It's a drug that is not commonly tested for at autopsy. At autopsies, there are tests that are done for drugs, like prescription drugs or illegal street drugs. But ethylene glycol, such an unusual substance, is not typically tested for. And so a person doing an autopsy isn't necessarily going to find it unless they're looking for it. So you're going to hear that evidence about the ethylene glycol in Julie Jensen's blood and in her stomach, and other evidence of that poisoning in her system. You may even see some photos from the autopsy showing evidence from the inside of her body. So in this trial, you're going to hear Julie Jensen talked about in that way, that detached, impersonal evidence. But this is Julie Jensen. And in this murder case, even more important than how her body was found and what was in her blood and her stomach, even more important than that is the evidence you will hear about Julie the person. You are going to hear from witness after witness, people who knew Julie in various aspects of her life, that her family and her children were everything to her.
We're just going to, oh, that's a bad time to freeze on the, bad time to stop on the prosecutor. But we're just listening to this part because Julie as the victim in this. And then when it gets into the sort of more, I guess, technical information about other evidence and so on, we'll skip forward. No, this is an American case, Wake the Truck Up. I'm still doing American cases because they get televised. We don't get televised cases. So, and this was recommended and requested by Shanna. There's penis jokes coming up, people. Stick with it.
Even had a specialized.
Well, there's not penis jokes from the court. I suspect I will be making penis jokes. So stick around for that.
License plate on her car.
And apologise, I'm in beach attire, but it's a stinking hot day here today. And as soon as this live is over, I'm heading back to the beach. I didn't get dressed up like a lawyer for this live. I apologise. I was always sweltering in my suit like that prosecutor, those suits we used to have to wear. Ugh. I'm so glad I don't have to wear that crap anymore.
My 3 Ds. That stood for her 2 children, David and Douglas, and the father of her children, the 3rd D, Daddy. That was for Mark Jensen.
Oh, that's sad.
When Julie Jensen died, her oldest son, David, he was 8 years old. He was in 3rd grade at Southport Elementary School. And you are going to hear from David's 3rd grade teacher. Her name is Therese DeFazio. And she's a witness in this case because Julie Jensen was very involved in her son's life. She was actually a room mother in this 3rd grade class. And so even though her youngest child, Douglas, he was only 3 years old, and she was a stay-at-home mom, it doesn't mean that she just stayed at home. Every Wednesday morning, starting in the beginning of that school year in 1998, Julie would volunteer in David's classroom to help out Ms. DeFazio. She would help the other students in the class and help Ms. DeFazio with various projects. And one thing that Julie Jensen and Ms. DeFazio had in common that you'll hear about in the evidence is that Ms. DeFazio had 2 sons too, 2 older sons. And so that was a topic of conversation between them because Julie Jensen was asking her for advice. What do you do with 2 sons? How do you raise your sons? She was looking towards the future, thinking about college for David, a very bright child. And Julie Jensen was also a big part of her children's activities. She was the kind of mom who would make Halloween costumes for her kids by hand. She was good at crafts and sewing, and she was a good baker. And you're going to hear in this case a lot about the neighborhood. The Jensens lived in Pleasant Prairie in a neighborhood known as Carroll Beach, which is near the lake. They had a nice yard with a beautiful garden, a swimming pool, and you'll hear from the neighbors who often saw Julie playing in the yard with the children or neighborhood children coming over to the house because they had the swimming pool. But Julie Jensen also had a life outside her children. Before her oldest son was born, she worked as an assistant at a stock brokerage firm. And even when she was a stay-at-home mom, she wasn't an isolated person. She was outgoing. She went out of her way to meet and get to know her neighbors. She made her neighbors her friends. And you're going to hear from a variety of neighbors who say that about Julie Jensen. She was also active in a neighborhood book club. You're going to hear about the book club. The month before Julie Jensen died in November.
If I do keep watching this trial, I will be skipping over the book club stuff. Book clubs are my kryptonite.
Of 1998, she hosted the book club and she invited the ladies in the book club into her home. Finally, she was an avid gardener. Gardening was really her passion, so she would be outside a lot working on the garden. In the week of her death, she called a neighbor just to discuss gardening, some seeds that the neighbor had or had grown. Julie Jensen was looking to purchase that in the future and was asking questions about it of her neighbor. The only real problem for Julie Jensen in the fall of 1998 was with her marriage. But before we talk about that time, the fall of 1998, I want to go back to 1990 and to 1991 in the months after David, her oldest, was born.
Okay, so I think we've got a bit of a good idea, we've got a good idea of Julie Jensen. So now I'm going to forward this up to the 20-minute mark because apparently defense objected. We'll get to like 19 and a half and see what happens. Here we go.
Slows down after June of 1998, and then it comes to a total stop after August of 1998. And you're going to hear in the evidence in this period of time that that's when the defendant gets a girlfriend. That's when his affair starts. Now, you're also going to hear about computer evidence. And most of the computer evidence relates to the murder itself, but some of it relates to this harassment. And one thing you'll hear is that the defendant, on his work computer, which was seized.
Oh no, he definitely looks like a Kevin Bacon. Oh, Kevin Costner, you reckon? Should have said Kevin Bacon, and I can see it. Kevin Bacon playing the role of a creepy murderer. I love Forensic Files.
By the police, this is a 2002 computer. So years after the harassment, but it's still relevant for this reason. On this 2002 work computer, the defendant had an extensive collection of pornographic images.
Ah, here we go. Oh, objection. Okay.
Why don't you guys go on the back for a second? We're going to just take care of it right away.
Oh, he's looking a bit smug there. So the jury's been taken out of court, I'm assuming. So the judge can listen to the objection, I guess. Don't see objections in opening statements very often in Osweja. Here we go. I'm at the right spot, Cement. Okay.
Images of pornography, unless they can somehow be connected to the images that were given, that were dropped around the house or around the work. I'm not sure how that's relevant. It's years after Julie Jensen's death, and unless there's a direct connection, a computer he had after her death, I don't know how that's relevant or those images would be relevant.
Your Honor, I'll just say this. I think it's outrageous that Ms. McNeil's opening statement was interrupted by this.
Mm-hmm.
Defense counsel has known for years that this evidence had been admitted at the last trial. If it was defense counsel's intention to bring a motion to exclude this evidence, that motion should have been heard by this court. We had numerous pretrial motions. There's never been any question that this evidence was going to be admitted during the course of this trial. And this evidence is clearly critically relevant to the evidence the state is going to be presenting during the course of this case. These 2,200 penis photos that were on the defendant's computer demonstrate a number of things. It demonstrates his odd preoccupation with the male member. It demonstrates that his level of offense that he took, that his wife, Julie, had this affair with this Perry Tariqa, in which she had apparently performed fellatio upon Perry Tariqa, but it was something that she wouldn't do with him. These penis photos that were...
Wow, this is a lot to digest. No pun intended. Okay, so we've got 2,200 dick pics, and she wouldn't give her Kevin Bacon lookalike John Lithgow, possibly Hannibal Lecter lookalike husband head jobs, but she did to the dude she had an affair with. Okay, I think we're on track at the moment. I love how this guy's just casually sitting here talking about 2,200 dick pics. That came from nowhere. Anyway, let's keep going. Look at the lady in the background on the left. It's this one over here on the right. She's looking down. She's like, I don't know where to look right now. And is she looking at him going, you dirty, dirty bastard? God, I don't know.
were left around the house for years and years and years, according to the investigating officers, including a Detective Ellis, who was a private detective in this matter, reflected that somebody had an enormous array of
I
photographs.
thought he was going to say an enormous erection. Choose your words wisely, mate. An enormous array, everyone, not an enormous erection. An enormous array, okay.
Pornography that they could tap in order to find penis photos that included a person that kind of looked like Julie, and included a background that where they could not exclude her bedroom as being the place where these photos were taken. There was.
Wait, what? So he's collecting photos that could potentially be Julie and looks like their bedroom. This is getting curious. Okay, here we go.
Ample testimony about this at the last trial. The relevance of the other X evidence has already been ruled upon by the Wisconsin Court of Appeals, and it's the law of the case in this matter. So to interrupt this opening statement on this basis is outrageous, and the objection should be overruled, and we should continue with this opening statement.
I'll let you respond briefly.
Thank you, Judge. I have to object when I think there's irrelevant, inadmissible evidence being presented. And I'm going to continue to do that during witnesses, even if they testified about it last time, because this court decides what's relevant in this case. Unless they can connect these 2002 penis pictures to the evidence.
Wait, 2002. So she's talking about the year of the 2200 dick pics. There's a lot of zeros and a lot of twos. I want to know, why didn't you bring this up in the motions, lady? I like your necklace, sort of, but why didn't you bring it up in the motions? Yes, the court will decide what's relevant or not, but you had an opportunity to try and have this excluded before the trial even kicked off. It's a lot of pics. Does the jury get to see all 2,200 of them? I am doing it, Shanna. I nearly pulled the pin because some of the people in chat have actually seen this on Jen Lou's channel, but yeah, I am doing it for you. It was your birthday request. I was going to message you, and then I thought, no, I want to see if YouTube's sending out notifications or not. Probably the wrong time to experiment with that. Well, yeah, who's the penis? I don't know, Kylie. Who it's attached to. I think all 2,200 pics are different dicks, personally. You think this should be about Kevin Bacon? Not Kevin's Bacon. Look, there's discussion about what he looks like, who he looks like. I think he does look like Kevin Bacon, playing the role of a psychopathic murderer. He's been compared as being a mashup of Kevin Bacon and Hannibal Lecter. And most recently, Cement Shoes thinks he looks more like John Lithgow. But I'm still getting my head around an objection by the defense in the middle of a prosecutor's opening statement. I've never seen that happen in my career. This is very unusual. Anyway, feel free to drop any of your penis jokes as it comes up too, Shanna, because I'm watching on another screen. It'll be interesting to see if we come up with similar lines. All right, here we go.
Prior to 1998, I don't understand how it's relevant. If the pictures that the Jensens were receiving were of someone giving fellatio, and these are just penis pictures, again.
Just penis. They're unsolicited dick pics, lady. They're not just penis pictures. There's people giving head jobs and the like in them. They're not just dick pics. This is just, what's that, just penis pics, then let them go through. I can't work out what her point is here. And why didn't she file a motion to get this stuff, rendered inadmissible before the trial even happened? I can't tell if she's enjoying this or she's horrified. Penis jokes as it comes up, I know. Yeah. Here we go. Shit, I'm on the wrong, I'm snorting. I'm on the wrong screen. Here we go.
Again, I'm not sure how it's relevant to the death of Julie Jensen.
All right. What I'm going to say is the last statement by Ms. Krause would be a great statement at a closing argument, because we would have had all the evidence come in, and if the defense had made a
I'm not going to react every time he says come in, but just once I will.
motion on relevance and I had overruled it, the defense could argue, well, even though it came in, we don't think it's relevant. We're at opening statements.
Mhm.
I don't see, this is not my first rodeo. I don't see a lot of objections at opening statements.
Exactly.
And a lot of times, statements are made.
Don't go down the opening statements role. We're talking penises here, not vaginas.
And then they come back to haunt the other party because that evidence was never presented. It never came in. So I just read to the jury, opening statements are not evidence. They're an opportunity to tell you what the evidence will show. And if the state wants to bring in this evidence, I'm not going to prejudge every little bit of statement that's being made now and rule whether it's relevant or not. We're going to be here for 3 years, not 5 weeks. So
Back
it's
in your
not a good
box.
objection.
I understand, Judge, and
You have a right, but it's not a good objection. I want it noted for the record.
Noted. Oh, well, there you go. That's part one. Ads. Part two. Is it worth? This judge rides a Harley. Yeah, I've had a look at the people in the background too, Shanna. One was looking at the floor like I don't know where to look, and another one was giving Kevin Bacon lookalike the stink eye. Even John Holmes probably didn't have. Oh, he would have had a couple of zeros at least. The judge reminds me of Crafton from Crafton and Kim. All right, so please save the granny in the blue from seeing dick pics. So is it worth going into part two? I guess it would be, right? Let me find it. What did I search last time? There's Fox do it in little segmentes. Okay, this part two. All right, here we go. Is there more penis stuff? Shannon, you've seen it before. Who was it who watched it on Jen Lou's? Was it Cement Shoes? Are we taking a deep? Kevin Bacon stars in Free Willy. Are we taking a deep dive into part two? Are there more penile references? Deep dive, I know. But yeah, is it worth continuing? Yes. Okay, cool. Here we go. There we go. Welcome to anyone watching the replay. Good to have you here. Hashtag replay crew. Hit that thumbs up, groovers. Get me on the algorithm. I need half of who's watching. I've got more than half of who's watching, so we should be on it. We should be on it. You can't wait. Let's do it. All right, here we go. Do I need to speed this lady up a bit, or we'll see how we go? Oh God, I can't do the witnesses today too. I will make a note to react to them because I'm just well, A, I'm starting to get hangry, and B, and I'm picturing this tuna and avocado salad I'm going to make shortly. I'm giving myself another 37 minutes of this live, but yeah, I'll definitely get into the sketches sometime into the. Oh yeah, no, I'm already hooked. I'm following this trial. I just want to react to the juicy bits. God, I can't help it. It just comes out of my mouth. It just flows. It pours. It squirts out of my mouth seamlessly. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. Okay.
Shows that the defendant had an extensive collection of pornographic images that were categorized and were similar to the harassing images that were left around the Jensen residence over that period of time. And I describe those images for a reason, because they connect to these 2002 images found on the defendant's work computer. But that's in 2002. So let's talk about 1998. What you're going to see here is you're going to see an example of Julie's log, what she kept, what she hand wrote about this harassing activity. You'll see the date at the top there, January 19th of 1998, and what Julie Jensen described as new tactics live on the internet. And so she's describing this harassment that is apparently occurring now with a change of tactics over the internet. And then what I want to show you next is what is noted on April 13th of 1998. Julie Jensen notes in this log an email that's part of the harassment. Here's the email. You'll see that it's from someone by the name of Turtle, that's the name in the email, to Mark Jensen.
Me soft.
And then you'll see
I mean, I know it's me soft, like here's a pic of me when I'm soft. It's the soft six all over again. I definitely am going to save the witnesses for over a beverage. I feel way too sober. I mean, I've got water, for crying out loud. Water, I tell you. Poor Turtle. He's poked his little head out of his shell. Okay, so here's a few for Jay of me soft. Oh, so Turtle, is Turtle the lover, the ex-lover, who sent Mark a photo of his dick to show Julie? What? A shot I took without her knowing it of a married girl in the office I'm currently doing at a nearby hotel. Well, who's Turtle? Why isn't the prosecutor? I don't think the prosecutors explained this very well. I can't work out what's going on here. This is hard to work out this email. Because Julie's got the log, right? And then the email. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the prosecutor's confusing everyone. She's Confuciusing me, that's for sure. And confusing me. Anyway, someone sent a picture of his soft penis. And it's a photo he took without her knowing it of a married girl in the office I'm currently doing at a nearby hotel. Charming. All right.
in the text of the email, consistent with the harassment. Here's a few for Jay, so Julie, of me soft. Also a shot I took without her knowing it of a married girl in the office I'm currently doing at a nearby hotel. Attached to this email are three pornographic images of nude males, and then what looks like a surreptitious image taken of a topless woman in a hotel room. And it's consistent with the harassment.
Hang on, Shanna's got all the info. Mark forwarded his own self-created emails to himself, then manipulated the sender from so he can print it out to show Julie. This trial is something else. Something. I mean, why would you be bothering with Laurie Vallow when you've got this on offer, you know? Or Alec Murdoch. Don't get me wrong. I think the Vallow one is a horrible story, and I think it is one worth following. But trying to make it look like Julie's ex-lover was harassing him. Poor boy. Granny, to wake the truck up is so concerned for Granny. Yes, cover up your ears, Granny. Cover up your ears.
Because here's this harassment.
I just feel like there's a bit missing though, Shanna, because this it sort of went from the objection, then there's a new clip, and she's straight into this whole penis stuff. But anyway, we'll soldier on. I don't know as a juror if I'd be following her right now. That's all I'm saying. Not following her on Twitter, just following her train of thought.
They're suggesting essentially he's doing it to another woman, taking pictures of her secretly, which was the same implication given to Julie Jensen in the course of this harassment. And then also, again, of course, the pictures of a nude male. This email is from M. Jensen at execpc.com to M. Jensen at execpc.com.
Twiddle.
With the names changed.
Yes.
So the way you would see this email in 1998, it would just look like it's from an anonymous person named Turtle to Mark Jensen. But the way our computer analysts can see the email, our computer analysts can see who it's from.
Clever computer analyst.
It's an email the defendant sent to himself.
Got it.
Pretending under disguise to be, he's acting as the perpetrator of this harassment.
Sneaky.
So how do we know Mark Jensen is really the harasser? A variety of things, but this email proves it. Where else do we see the email? We see this same email address show up on the Jensen home computer. This email address, mjensen at execpc.com, is in the Jensen home computer under the name Mark Jensen.
I want to see the dick pics.
So this harassing, degrading email that's noted in Julie's log was sent by Mark Jensen to Mark Jensen under the guise of the harasser to be presented by the defendant to Julie as continued punishment for her affair.
Well, just clarify something here. What's the, yeah, I did see Bertolino got added to the Petito lawsuit. I did. What's Julie's log all about? Like, you know, is she a captain of a ship we didn't hear about? Captain's log. 3 men fell overboard. Why is it a log? Are we talking like, is it a journal? A diary? What is her log? And don't go into the bathroom with log jokes. Well, unless you want to. Do whatever you want around here. But what's Julie's log? It's her diary. Okay. Let's show Julie's log. Let's see Kevin Bacon's logs. We don't want to see Kevin Bacon's logs. Oh my God. Thank you for putting me onto this, Shanna. I do think I need alcohol the next time I react to this though. This is great, but it's gonna, and then that time-wise is gonna be a nuisance for all of you in the US of A. I'll try and make sure that it's a time that you might be up early in the morning. It'll be a lot for you to handle, but for me, I think I need alcohol if I'm going to follow this trial. I don't drink much, but this is warranting something stiff. I can't. Hey, Lily. I just came in. She's like, I want to see the dick pics. Yeah, you might be wondering what I'm talking about. You'll need to rewatch the start. It'll make sense. I'm just trying to put a sentence together that doesn't have a word in it that can have some direct connection to penis, and it's not working. It does pair well. I will be pairing it with hard alcohol. A stiff drink indeed. Lily wants to see the PP. You need to change your name, Lily, to PP. You want to see something stiff, no fun. It's just coming out of my mouth. I keep saying coming, and even that's concerning. It's going to take me 105 years to cover this, because I'm going to need to have a cup of tea and a nice lie down after this live. No, I'm going to go and have a swim. I'm going to wash this creep right out of my hair. Okay. That not too much noise from my little portable air conditioning unit behind me. Tell me if it is annoying because I can. Well, I don't want to because it's still really hot in here, but I can turn it down or off. Oh, you're drinking in London. Oh my God, I hope you didn't spit your drink out when you walked in to me saying, I want to see the dick pics. All right. So we've got some games happening. That there's the sometimes intended but mostly not dick jokes. We're also focused in on a granny in the background. Wake the truck up. America is very concerned for her welfare. We're also doing who does the defendant look like. Now, I'm still thinking the Kevin Bacon for sure, but you need to now look at him with fresh eyes as well as a mashup of Kevin Bacon and Hannibal Lecter. And just to complicate things, Cement Cheese is throwing John Lithgow into the mix. You did almost choke on your drink. Awesome. Did you swallow? Oh my God, kill me now. Seriously, this Shannon knows me so well. This is like the perfect trial for me to cover. Oh my God, you came in on the dick pic comment too, Bristol. Okay. We have the erection objection. I know, and the poor jury, they had to prematurely evacuate earlier because of an objection during the prosecutor's opening statement. Like that judge said he hasn't seen it happen very often. I've never seen it. I don't even know if you could try that in Australia. I really don't. I mean, I haven't obviously watched every single trial in Australia, and we don't televise trials. So, I mean, I'm talking about when I was a lawyer sitting in courtrooms or being one of the lawyers involved in the trial, but I've never seen it happen before, ever. All right, let's put it back on for a sec. Oh, I need to calm down and regroup. And I think what she's talking about right now might be the opportunity. Every time I say it, why do I have to take the shot? Every time I say still we're coming. No, let's think of a drinking game with the prosecutor, not me. I'm going to be drunk and under the table in 11 seconds. This is water too. Actually, I'll play the drinking game now because I'm drinking water. But no, it's got to be the people we're watching so that people pay attention. Not me. We're all going to be absolutely legless before high noon. Well, it's afternoon here, but you know what I mean? I can't be responsible for that. Oh. Nice try. Oh my God. Oh, now, Shannon, don't give too many things away, though. Please, I love surprises, but that is hysterical. She accidentally says dick drive instead of flip drive. Yep, we've all got dicks on our minds. But yeah, keep some stuff up your sleeve because otherwise I'll lose interest if I feel like I know well, not the full thing, but yeah. Little tidbits are fine. But it's like people telling you how a movie ends before you've seen it. I just don't bother. No, that's it. I'm gone. I'm done. I won't even watch it. All right. Okay. I'm taking myself off the screen. There we go. I'm gone. Don't know where the lovely Emily is, but if she's already watched this too, she'll be putting quotes in as well. I don't know. You two would have been hilarious. Where were you watching it together, Shanna? Oh, was it a freak show? Oh, I had a look at that last night. Weirdly, a little bit of that on Court TV. When you found each other in Court TV, cool. I don't know. You're both freaks. So okay, here we go. I'm composing myself. Let me compose myself. Still snorting though. All right.
Now, years later, in the spring of 1998. So that's the evidence that you're going to hear, that the first time the Jensen marriage was on the rocks in the early 1990s, that Julie Jensen sought counseling and treatment. She was treated for depression. She seriously contemplated divorce and even filed for divorce in 1991. In contrast, Mark Jensen engaged in a years-long covert campaign to harass and punish his wife.
This does not sound
So let's
good.
turn to what's happening in 1998 when the Jensen marriage was again crumbling. In 1998, Mark Jensen had moved jobs. He was now working as a stockbroker.
I have to make a confession too, and it's not a good one, but I've got It's George Jetson with Boy Elroy in my head. And I'm going to have to play it at the end of this live to get the earworm out, because I know it's Jetson in the Jetsons, not Jensen. But every time she says Jensen, I instantly go to the Jetsons. So yes, at the end of this live, I will be playing that TV theme to try and get that earworm out of my head.
At a company called Stiefel Nicholas. The home base for that company was in St. Louis. And working in St. Louis as an assistant to the defendant's boss was a woman by the name of Kelly Labonte. In this case, Kelly Labonte is sometimes referred to as the motive, because the defendant began having an affair with her in around September of 1998. And this was a very serious relationship, because shortly after Julie Jensen's death, just in the weeks after, Kelly Labonte would come to Pleasant Prairie to visit. She would stay at the defendant's house. Soon thereafter, she moved to Wisconsin. She remained in a relationship with the defendant for years after Julie's death. She married him. She had a child with him. And they were together until about 2009 when they divorced.
Because she realized he was a creepy pervert and possible murderer.
And part of this evidence, an important part of this evidence, the computer evidence, right here, you can see in this picture in the back here, that's the home computer.
Oh.
A picture of the Jensen home computer in their home in 1998.
That's not a very good office chair. Why doesn't he have a gaming chair like Mummy Rambling's blog and Bullhorn Betty and so many other, and Zav Girl? You know, I can't take any of them seriously in their gamer chairs. I'm like, what are you playing tonight? Carmageddon, bit of Fortnite. Oh, loving the pink trim, Bullhorn Betty. But I don't think that's a very good ergonomic chair. And also this armchair is way too close. But there it is, the sinister computer. And a gun up on the wall too. You don't see that in Australian households. That's a rather grim looking room. Oh, and he's got boat shoes too. It's getting worse the more I look at it. Let's keep going. Never trust a man in boat shoes.
And so because we're talking...
Even if you love a man who occasionally wears boat shoes, when they're wearing their boat shoes, don't trust them.
About 1998, we're talking about not a laptop or something mobile. We're talking about a desktop computer that has its own room in the Jensen residence.
Oh, wait, are they penny loafers? Look, whatever they are, they're wrong. Don't trust him.
This isn't in a bedroom or a room that's occupied for people for other reasons. There's no TV. This is the computer room, essentially.
Yeah.
And what you're going to see
is
that on this computer, after it was seized by the police, the day of Julie's death, on this computer, the police found emails between the defendant and Kelly Labonte. Now, these were work emails in the sense that what the defendant was doing is he was accessing his work emails from home, which now is pretty normal to do on your cell phone or on your laptop. But back then in 1998, with dial-up internet, that was pretty sophisticated.
Oh.
And you're going to hear the detective in that time frame didn't even fully understand it. How are these work emails on the home computer? But that's how they were accessed. And so the detective sees
Is anyone else focusing in on her bushy eyebrows, or is it just me? Bushy eyebrows is never going to be the same again for me. Yeah. Oh, the cop starts falling asleep. Awesome. Well, let's take a shot when that happens. Take a shot if you start falling asleep too, everybody.
these work emails, but he sees they're not just emails between coworkers.
No. They're
These
rude.
emails are full of sexual innuendo,
Ooh.
and it's obvious that these people during the fall of 1998, they were in a relationship. They were having an affair because Kelly ended up getting married too in that time period.
Oh, wow.
In fact, in one of these emails from October of 1998, the defendant refers to Kelly Labonte as his girlfriend. And they end the emails frequently, almost all the time, with IDLY. I do love you. So within a few months after Julie Jensen's death, the police are aware of this affair, the motive. And the detective sits down with the defendant in April of 1999, so a few months after Julie's death. And as this investigation is continuing, the detective who has seen these emails asks the defendant about Kelly Labonte. And the defendant lies. He says before Julie's death, they were just co-workers and friends. He had only seen her a few times. They weren't in a relationship. And even at that point, in the spring of 1999, he wouldn't describe them as dating. It's a lot of hemming and hawing about what he wanted to call them. And he certainly didn't want to admit.
There's a lot of hemming and hawing. Doesn't she mean umming and ahhing? What's hemming and hawing? Sounds like a sewing terminology. Hemming and hawing. Oh, is this some wacky expression that's new to me? Weaseling. Beating about the bush, of course. Straddling the fence. Waffling. Okay, never heard it before. Hemming and hawing. Yeah. Yeah, I know. They're kind of strange headphones, aren't they? She's giving Sam the Eagle a run for his money. Straddling. I know. You think I didn't zoom in on that? I didn't add banana, though, like somebody else just did. Hemming and hawing. Okay, something new for Tori. You learn something new every day. I could have lived the remainder of my days without knowing that, but I know it now, and I'll probably start saying it. Thanks, Brian Koberger's sister lookalike. Great.
To having this affair. Now, in this trial, I expect the undisputed evidence is going to show that the defendant was in the midst of an affair with Kelly Labonte.
I already believe he was.
Psychologists have discovered that procrastination isn't caused by laziness or lack of motivation, but...
Sorry, guys. I don't have YouTube Plus on this channel as well, so with Smooth Criminal, we occasionally get advertisements, but sometimes there'll be opportunities for humour there too.
Now, Julie was a perceptive person, and in the fall of 1998, she noticed changes in her husband. She knew that something was wrong. Something had changed after her husband had started this new job at Stiefel Nicholas.
Stiefel.
And she even suspected that maybe there was...
Stiefel, isn't it? Stiefel will do for us.
Was another woman. Maybe her husband was having an affair. But the proof that the police had found was on the computer. And a critical part of the evidence that you're going to hear in this case is that Julie Jensen didn't know anything about computers.
Oh, Jules.
Now, nowadays, that sounds almost impossible in 2023, but life was different in 1998. People did exist without computers. They had grown up without computers. If you were an adult in 1998, you'd grown up without a computer. You started your work life, no computer.
No, that's not true.
No one had these little computers in.
She wrong. I got my first computer with a job in 1992. What are you talking about? Please tell me that the US of A, the United States of America, had computers in 1992. I mean, if we did, you must have, because it's like 1978 where I live. Yeah. I mean, my school got its first computer in my last year of school, which was 1984. My first work computer was 92, but I used a computer when I was a student too. I studied law from 87 to 91 and had computers in that time. My first job, though, it was the classic Mac, you know, the little portable one that had the massive battery, and you could go and sit in a park and play Scarab of Ra for 40 minutes before the battery ran out. She's not impressing me much at all, Shanna. I think the jury's all asleep too.
In their pocket. And the internet itself was in its infancy. This is dial-up internet. You can probably hear it when I say the words, hear it yelling at you. And so what you're going to hear in this case is that this internet, this incredibly slow internet, this is something that Julie Jensen never used. You're going to hear that Julie Jensen didn't have an email address. There's no evidence of her sending an email. You'll see that this computer evidence, that computer in the Jensen home.
Who needs an email when you've got a log?
The internet was only used on that computer during times when the defendant was home. And Julie was a stay-at-home mom. So she had access to this computer all day long. But the computer analysts can tell when the internet was being accessed, the times. And they can tell that when Julie's home alone, no one's using the internet.
Okay, move on.
It's only when the defendant is home.
Bring back the dick jokes.
Late at night, the early morning hours. When it's used during the daytime, it's on a weekend. Those are the times the internet is being used on this computer.
We got you.
And you're going to hear that there's also several documented times when we know from the evidence the defendant was out of town. There's no internet usage during those times.
Unbelievable. Julie wasn't on the internet.
Julie Jensen did not use the computer or the internet back in 1998 when that was actually possible. You're even going to hear an anecdote from Therese DeFazio. Remember, she's the third grade teacher.
Yep.
You're going to hear that when Julie Jensen came to her classroom and offered to volunteer, Therese DeFazio thought, oh, it might be helpful. Maybe Julie can help the kids in their computer lab. And so Therese DeFazio suggested that, and Julie was like, oh no, I don't even know how to turn on a computer.
Great anecdote.
You know, Julie wanted to be helpful, but she told Therese DeFazio way back at the beginning of the school year, I really can't help with the computers. I can maybe type if someone opens a program for me, but that's it. So with proof of the defendant's affair being on the computer, Julie didn't have proof, only suspicions. She and her husband were arguing all the time. And she said when the defendant wasn't arguing with her, he basically didn't speak to her at all. Their relationship in 1998, that fall, was just falling apart. And once again, as in 1990, 1991, Julie was contemplating divorce.
I wish she had. Why
now, during this time period, there were a few...
Why do these bloody men in particular do this? Like, just get a friggin' divorce. Why kill somebody and get caught and spend the rest of your life in jail? You don't end up with the chick you love. Your kids end up with no parents. Why? How dumb? Why do these men mainly, I mean, don't get me wrong, women do it too, but primarily men do it, think this is going to be don't they see all these trials of all these stupid men and go, I probably shouldn't actually carry out this weird thought I'm having because I'm watching all these men being locked away forever for murdering their wives for insurance money or just to get out of a crappy marriage. Probably could just, call up a family lawyer and get a DIVORCE. Like, this is just dumb. Didn't want to pay child support. You make it, you're responsible for it. It just is like they're not getting away with this stuff. A married woman's found dead. Who did they look at first? Ka-ching. Who is it usually? Ka-ching. Derps, a lot of them. It's just mind-boggling.
Few people that Julie Jensen confided in. Particularly, you're going to hear these names a lot, particularly her neighbors.
Take a shot every time she says particularly. Who says that? I mean, I know it's how it's spelled, but nobody says it. Everyone says particularly. Particularly. Bottoms up, groovers.
Margaret and Ted Voigt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I call them Julie's neighbors, but you're going to see in the evidence that they were really
also
more
her
than
friends.
neighbors.
She made friends with her neighbors. We know.
They had lived next to each other for years.
Yeah.
The Voigts also had 2 children who were growing up. They both spent a lot of time outside.
And in the
The
pool.
Voigts' children would come over to play in the pool. They
Yeah.
would see Julie outside all the time,
Hi,
working on the
Julie.
garden. They would socialize with each other. They went out to dinners. They went to places like
Okay.
Six Flags with their kids.
How do I accelerate this
They went to-
woman? I'm speeding you up. I've got 5 minutes before I end this live. Let's see what she's like at 1.5. Here we go.
The zoo or birthday party, so they were friends. They were more than neighbors.
Everybody needs good neighbors.
In fact, you're going to hear in the evidence that Julie Jensen saw the Voigts so commonly that it was basically every day.
Wow.
Usually every day they'd see each other and chat with
How unusual when you live right next door to somebody.
each other.
I will personally give $1 million.
Elon, personally, give $1 million to this woman so she shuts up. All right? There you go. You want to give $1 million to someone? Give it to this prosecutor. Please.
To someone who cannot make money on our platform. Quantum AI is already bringing in.
See you.
So one day, about 5 or 6 weeks before Julie died, in about late October of 1998, Ted Voigt saw Julie Jensen in the front of her house. There was a bench there, and she was sitting there and she was crying. And
I
Ted
do
Voigt was
feel
getting
for
ready for work
Julie.
that morning, but he saw his friend, his neighbor, crying. And so he went over to her.
And said,
And
Julie,
this is the
what's
first
wrong?
of a series of conversations that Julie Jensen had with Ted Voigt about her concerns about her marriage and what was going on with the defendant.
What was
You'll hear
going
about these
on?
conversations in detail in the evidence, but basically over the course of these 5 or 6 weeks before her death, Julie Jensen told Ted Voigt,
He just
and
suppressed.
described those
Oh,
images for a
shit.
reason because they
He just inhaled a yawn. His entire life and liberty is on trial right now. Everything. He doesn't know if he's heading off to prison for the rest of his life, which rightfully he will be. And even he just had to swallow a yawn. Like, you think you'd be on high alert. You're like, this is all going to decide whether I'm a free man or not. He's about to plead guilty just to get out of there. Now I've got to find where that happened. Did you see him swallow the yawn?
was looking up poisoning. And then
Oh, wait. We're back. I will go to the end of this on high speed.
conversations in detail in the evidence. But basically, over the course of these 5 or 6 weeks before her death,
Look at him.
Julie Jensen told Ted Voigt about the arguments with the defendant, how the defendant seemed changed, her worry that maybe the defendant was having an affair, and things that Julie had noticed with the defendant about the computer. She talked about going by the computer and seeing sticky notes that he had written by the computer that were suspicious, that had weird words on them like syringe and names of drugs.
Ooh.
And she saw the defendant on the computer. For instance, she'd be vacuuming in the hall outside, and she saw on the screen that he was looking up poisoning and then closed the door in her face. She described another time when the defendant had gone to work but left the computer on, and on the screen, there was a website about poisoning.
Eek. That's so terrifying. It's so terrifying. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You just wish that you could rewind the clock and say to her, run. And why didn't Ted tell her to get out of there? You know, like, I mean, I'm not blaming Ted, but come on, Ted. What did you do about this, Ted?
So now, moving to late November, I'm going to put up here a calendar that'll help you with the days. Moving to late November in the days before Julie's death, which happened on December 3rd, Julie confided in Therese DeFazio. And this was the last time she saw Therese DeFazio. And you'll hear Ms. DeFazio recount this conversation and how she saw that Julie was troubled and encouraged Julie to speak to her. And Julie told Ms. DeFazio that she was afraid that her husband was going to kill her. Now, Ms. DeFazio was shocked and she was taken aback, and she asked Julie why she would think something so serious. And Julie explained about that list, that weird sticky note. And then she explained that she feared that her husband might try to kill her with a drug overdose and make it look like a suicide. Again, Ms. DeFazio asked her why she thought her husband might do this. And Julie said there were other things that she couldn't explain. And Julie confided to Ms. DeFazio, the same as she had to Mr. Voigt, that it bothered her how every time she walked by that computer room and the defendant was in it, he would cover it or turn it off quickly so she couldn't see the screen. And then there's a third person, the defendant's sister, Laura Koster. During Julie's life, Julie and Laura Koster were good friends. So even though Laura Koster is the defendant's sister, Julie confided in her as a friend. Julie Jensen spoke to the defendant's sister about the same suspicious note, the one that listed the syringe on it, and she even told the defendant's sister. She told her in the fall of 1998 that she feared that the defendant might be planning to kill her. Now, this sounds crazy, except for the fact that within a few weeks, within a few days of these conversations, Julie Jensen was dead. This sounds crazy. And that's the problem. That's the dilemma that Julie Jensen was facing. She knew it sounded crazy, and she explained it to Ted Voigt and to Therese DeFazio, that if she acted on these fears, if she did what a person who feared for their life would do, take her kids and run and hide, if she did those things, the defendant would point at her and call her crazy. Look at what my crazy wife did, running off with the kids, acting like I'm going to kill her. So here's what Ted Voigt said about Julie's dilemma. Ted Voigt said that her suspicions were that the defendant was trying to poison her, or he's trying to drive her nuts to take away the kids from her, because that's what the arguments that they used to have, that he was scaring her, that she was an unfit mother and he would take the kids away from her. Therese DeFazio said that Julie told her she stayed with her husband for the sake of the boys, whom she loved dearly, that she thought if she tried to leave her husband, he'd make up stories that she was unstable and that he'd get the kids. She didn't want to lose her boys. Another thing Julie had told Ms. DeFazio, going back to that prior counseling in 1990 and 1991, she had told Therese DeFazio during that counseling, the defendant would always say things that were making her look like she was crazy. Remember, this is the man who for years tricked Julie into believing that her former lover was using pornography all around when it was actually him. These days, we have a word for this. We call it gaslighting. So let's be clear. This isn't a case where it's either a homicide or a tragic suicide. It's either a homicide or a suicide plus. A suicide plus an evil plan to frame an innocent man. That way, the kids won't just lose their mom, they'll lose their dad too. There is one thing that is inescapably clear from the evidence. In spite of her fears that Julie expressed to multiple people before she died, Julie Jensen would not abandon her children. And so she stayed.
I didn't feel good playing that when it's talking about her death. We're nearly finished with this one, and at some time in the near future, I'll be doing parts 3 and 4, or if Shanna suggests it, if the remainder of this prosecutor's opening is as droll as this part has been, I might just jump straight into witness testimony. What say you, Shanna? But yeah, she didn't want to leave the kids. But again, like, this is the area that I advocate like a lot in, and I wish I could do more work in this area. Communities and society need to make it much easier for people to leave these shitty marriages and take the kids with them and get the support and the anonymity that they need to be safe. And it's a conversation that's happening the world over. But it's just so heartbreaking hearing these stories. And back in 98, there were probably very limited services available to Julie. And also she didn't have any sort of income either. It's heartbreaking.
Now, on Tuesday, December 1st, Julie Jensen went to see the family doctor, Dr. Borman. And during this visit, Julie told the doctor that she was miserable and depressed. So there it is, Julie Jensen talking about being depressed just days before her death. But she also told Dr. Borman that she and the defendant were having marital problems. She told him about the affair that she had and felt that the defendant never forgave her for. She told Dr. Borman that she's concerned her marriage might be over, and she told him several times that her kids meant everything to her. She denied being suicidal and talks about not wanting to lose her kids. And so we can see the parallels here to 1990. And Dr. Borman ends up referring her for counseling and giving her samples of Paxil, an antidepressant. One thing that you're going to hear in the evidence is before this visit to the doctor, the defendant was urging Julie to go see a doctor. So maybe he was just being a caring husband for his depressed wife. But this December 1st visit to the doctor was not enough for Mark Jensen, because the next day he went to Dr. Borman alone. This is December 2nd. And he didn't go for himself, he went for Julie. And he told Dr. Borman that he was concerned. He'd gotten some information off the internet about the side effects of Paxil, and he was concerned that Julie might be having side effects. And he was concerned because she wasn't sleeping. Now, this was odd because Dr. Borman made no note about sleep disturbances the prior day.
I think we can just take her off the screen, really. It's not going to get any better. But yeah, it might be worth just, I don't know if the rest of her testimony, I mean, I might play it while I go down to the beach and have a swim. I'll have a listen on very high speed to see if there's any more penis jokes. But it might be a case of jumping straight into some of the witnesses, because I'm way behind on this trial. It's been running for what, 2-something weeks now? 2+ weeks, the 9th of Jan, I think, was it? Anyway, wow. I'm hooked. I'll definitely be yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, I've got a lot of catching up to do. But look, what I'll be doing is listening, and when I get to some good bits, I'll be like, right, we're going live. I've got to react to this. So once I hear anything worth reacting to, I won't continue listening because I like to react as it happens. But it's certainly quite the story, and I really feel for Julie and her boys. They didn't deserve it. Just got one last little job to do before I end this live and go make my tuna and avocado salad. I'm going with this version because I think it's the one I'm least likely to get struck for using. But I've got to do it. Got to get it out of my head. Gosh, this ad is long. Just waiting for an ad to roll on, Groovers. Just waiting for an ad to roll on. Here we go. Bit of earworm removaling. Yes. Oh, look at that. Salad. You're welcome, Shanna, and I'll do it again soon. It was big fun. Big erect fun. And again, apologies, I'm not dressed like a lawyer. I'm in beach attire. I shall be heading forthwith to the beach. I'm still waiting for the tide to go out because that's when we get a little bit of wave action. It's a bit too high at the moment. But I've just got to rectify an earworm issue. Because, yes, people, I do know the difference between Jensen and Jetson, but I can't get this out of my head. You enjoyed it, Cement Shoes? Awesome, Groover. Here we go. Blue Dipper School. I used to love the Jetsons. Oh, that was
It's a
it.
cross circuit in the Budorak cycle. Lumpy teeth? Oh, you got some of the oatmeal fallout. How's your bacon?
No, I
And your
don't want a full episode. I wanted the song, man. That's what's stuck in my ear. Is there a closing credit? Ah, look. I'll have to sort that out on my beach walk as well. Gosh, I've got a lot of stuff I've got to do. Thanks for hanging out, Groovers. We've been covering the trial of Mark Jensen. Convicted, acquitted, well, not acquitted, but conviction overturned, convicted again, then it was overturned, then convicted again, overturned. It's quite the saga. Quite the saga. The prosecution's opening statement, the two best things about it was the objection by the defense lawyer, very unusual, and the penis references. It's got everything, peeps, and we'll be having drinking games and all sorts of fun things with it, I'm sure. It's snowing here and 32 degrees, so you watch Fraggle Rock. Well, I'll have a little swim and a paddle for you too, Bristol. Lots of stuff coming up on the channel. It is batshit tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to hang out with Finn and I, come hither. I also I'm starting to prepare my next missing person case in Tassie after that extraordinary story this week of divers finding a missing man while they're looking for a different missing man. And you can recap that. I did a live on it last night. Lots of things happening on this channel. I will start doing some keto cooking again because it seems some people are keen to check that out too. So even the Shitty Kitty Kitchen's going to be back in action shortly. But until I see you next time, don't get hit by, don't get struck by. Smooth criminal. Thanks for being with me, Groovers. I'll see you all very soon.
DJ Gorbacha.